A to the K.
To the K.
To the K.
Hello, one and all. Welcome to the A to the K Wrestling Show, where today we are joined by MLW World Heavyweight Champion, the one and only Alex Hammerstone. Alex, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
So what we'd like to do, if we could, just to start off by asking sort of when you sort of first got into wrestling, or when you first started watching wrestling. Were you a fan when you were younger?
Yeah, man. I was probably 7, 8 years old when I first really got captivated by it, and once I was hooked, it was a huge part of my life as a child. Kind of got out of it for a few years as a teenager, but I got pulled back in, and once I got pulled back in, it was like maybe I want to give this a go.
Yeah. Awesome. Obviously, you made your debut back in 2013, so you're approaching almost a decade in the business now. How crazy has the last 10 years been?
Yeah, actually, that internet statistic is a little inaccurate. I debuted before that. I believe it was early 2012, maybe even late 2011. But yeah, man, it's crazy to think because that a decade's already gone by. I mean,
Wow.
I remember just it feels like just yesterday I was the new guy in the locker room with so much potential and all the years ahead of me, and now I'm like, oh, I'm getting kind of old and crusty over here.
Love it.
So obviously you're approaching 4 years with MLW. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah.
So just wondered if you could sort of tell us a little bit about sort of joining MLW and your debut as part of the Dynasty.
Yeah, man. MLW was like my first big break in the industry. I've been doing the independent scene and kind of rising to the top a lot of the prominent independent promotions across the country. I'd done a couple things overseas in Japan. I'd been to Canada and Mexico, but I hadn't got any of the major players in North America to lock me down to a contract and give me something long-term to sink my teeth into. And finally, 2019 came around. MLW gave me that opportunity, and the rest is history because it started off great. Like they threw me into the Dynasty, which of course was myself, MJF, Richard Holiday, and almost immediately we found, even though we weren't familiar with each other beforehand, we found very quick chemistry with each other and started having so much fun. And when you're having fun and enjoying what you're doing in wrestling, that tends to shine through on the camera, and people gravitate towards it. So with the help of those two guys, I became part of one of the standout portions of the show. And the transition from that into breaking out into singles success was very natural. And man, I've just had such a great time, whether it's just great opponents, great factions, and then also the opportunities that they've helped afford me to travel and get my foot into some new doors, such as when they sent me to Pro Wrestling Noah. It's been an incredible run, and I feel like it hasn't even reached its pinnacle as of yet.
No, absolutely. You mentioned the kind of moving into that singles status, following on from the Dynasty. How kind of different is it? Obviously, you were brought in as part of that, and now for probably the first time within MLW, you're out on your own. How do you find that?
Well, I find it very comfortable. This is a role that I was, I've been kind of a lone ranger for most of my wrestling career, although I've had spurts, of tag team runs here and there over the years. I've always kind of gravitated towards being a singles guy. Like what drew me to professional wrestling was the idea that your success or failures are based solely on you. It's a one-man sport in a lot of ways, and that's not to say that there's not a lot of people along the way who help you get success and who do a lot for you, but it's when it comes to putting in the work and reaping the benefits, it's on you. And I did a lot of things before wrestling where I was relying on other people. So wrestling was awesome in that regard, that I could put in the work and I could reap the results. And MLW is very good in that regard, as far as they let guys reach for the brass ring, and if they grab it, they grab it. You don't walk in there and there's not a bunch of politics of who they're gonna push because of who they know or who they decided was a star and who they decided wasn't going to be successful. I came in there kind of at the bottom rung, and I just kept climbing each step of the ladder until it was like, okay, this is the guy.
Love that.
That's awesome, yeah. So obviously you mentioned one of your other former stablemates being MJF. So just out of curiosity, are you sort of keeping up with what MJF's up to over in AEW?
Yeah, I don't honestly keep up as much as I used to with every single thing going on in wrestling.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of years I was a maniac. I was training multiple days a week, and I was watching every single program from every single company and all these things. And sometimes when you burn the candle at both ends, you kind of get burnout, you get fatigued. So I still keep up with big things going on in the industry, and MJF is a big thing in the industry. So I definitely keep up with him, and it's hard not to, just because what everything he does tends to gather so much buzz and so much notoriety, and it's you're not going to start watching something of his and turn it off. It's always captivating. It always grips you. It always keeps your attention. So yeah, I've very much enjoyed watching him climb to the level of success I knew he would.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So obviously, Alexander Hammerstone, can you give us a bit of insight into how you kind of came up with that name and you kind of, I don't want to call it a gimmick, but you kind of, how you put yourself across in MLW?
So the way I present myself in MLW is actually there's really not much to it besides me at this point. I think when I first got into wrestling, we're all trying to find what works and what doesn't work. And I would try a couple things, or someone would try to explain to me how I should be acting. And, over time, I would try to be like, oh, maybe if I be this, it'll work. And I be that, it'll work. And then MLW, especially over the last, 2 years, it's really become me being myself on camera, acting like myself, letting people connect with me as a human being, has been what actually works, because there's no bullshit. It's not phony. It's not fake. It doesn't come across as contrived. Yeah, so the presentation, it's like, that's me. I'm like, I remember one time wrestling for a company, and I'm doing something. I knock a guy down a couple times, and hit a big flex, and the crowd goes crazy. And then I got to the back, and the promoter's like, we really got to figure out your character. I just don't get it. Like, you're flexing like you're cocky, but you're supposed to be a baby face. And I'm like, I'm being me. Like, I'm that's what I do. And did you hear the crowd? They liked it. There's not a lot of hard and fast rules in wrestling. It's like, people can tell you that, oh, you're supposed to do it this way, you're supposed to do it that way. But if you're connecting with the people and being genuine and they're liking it, that works.
Yeah, definitely.
So just wanted to ask quickly as well about your entrance music, which is now Millionaire by Queens of the Stone Age. Can you tell us a bit about how that came about?
Yeah, so like I said, trying to do some things that weren't so genuine at times. For a lot of the years of wrestling, I was presenting a lot more of like a Thor-esque, like, just, oh, I'm an ass kicker type, which, like, yeah, I'm an ass kicker, but it kind of limited, the dimensions I was allowed to show, and, like, kind of being a goof sometimes, or being silly, or, whatever. And, it was actually before I joined up with MLW that I kind of went through a metamorphosis of a character change, where the whole idea was like, I'm going to stop trying to be a character. And I was sitting there trying to figure out what my music was going to be. And it's one of those things that wrestlers overthink. And I'm sitting there listening to songs and trying songs, or trying to find remixes of songs, or trying to do my own remix of a song. And all this time, like, I'm going through this, I'm training really hard at the gym. And every time Millionaire comes on, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's the shit. And I was like, wait, why am I not coming out to this? I love this music. It fits my vibe. I want to come out there, break the curtain with energy, and carry that throughout my match. A lot of the guys come out big and brooding, or slow and plotting. It's like, no, I come through that curtain, the energy's high, and that's what you're getting. And I just think it really matches the energy I'm trying to display, but also it's a song I love, and every time I hear it, it gets me hype. And at first that wasn't my theme music with MLW, but after, that's what I was using on the indies. And I think when we were coming back from the pandemic, Court reached out to me. He's like, hey, your presentation is kind of changing. Do you think maybe we come back with some new music? I said, if you can get this, that would be awesome. And he did what he had to do and he made it happen. And I am so grateful because every once in a while I'll work some kind of indie company that has limitations on using music rights. And I got to come out to something else and it's something generic. And it's just not the same.
No, I get that. Like you say, it just works so well.
Yeah, such a good song. You mentioned kind of Thor there as well. And, you get a lot of comparisons between yourself and obviously Thor and, names like Brock Lesnar and Hulk Hogan even. Have you heard much of this and what do you make of those comparisons?
Man, it's I really it used to bother the hell out of me because at first I was getting I got Triple H a lot early in my career, and I even went through a phase where I was kind of egged it on a little bit and like kind of gave the middle finger to the fans, where I shaved the handlebar beard and I got trunks that were very reminiscent of his and kind of just mess with people. But then there were people who were like, "Oh, this Hammerstone guy is a Triple H cosplay wrestler," and I'm like, I was trying to I was ribbing you, but you thought I was like, people thought I was like serious. They thought I was just a serious Triple H mark or something, and then once I cut the hair and I was wearing the red leather jacket, everyone's like, oh, he just looks like Jericho. I'm like, oh my God. And then now the latest one is Brock Lesnar. And it's like, I saw a video went up the other day for like a Lucha Libre website, and all the comments were just like, who's this wannabe Brock Lesnar? I was just like, but I was thinking about this, Brock Lesnar, Chris Jericho, Triple H, Hulk Hogan, all main event world champions. It's not like people are like, oh, who he reminds me of? Midian, So at this point, I've just realized it's something that wrestling fans like to do. And as long as I'm not going out of my way to carbon copy, rip off anybody, I'll take the comparisons.
So obviously, when you won the heavyweight title for the first time, you had to vacate obviously the openweight belt. So being the kind of inaugural openweight champ and kind of having to give that belt up, do you kind of still see yourself as being the openweight champ? And do you think we might get a collision down the line with obviously Davey Richards?
You know what? A little bit. Because there's a certain amount of pride I carried with that championship. Like I feel like I did a lot of my best work with that championship. I took that belt to Japan and had some incredible matches with it. I had, I wrestled like my match with T-Hawk for that championship was incredible. My match with Pillman to win the belt was really fun. It's like that belt, it meant a lot to me. And I kind of, at the time of holding it, I always thought of it as the workhorse belt. Like, okay, the main event, there has to be some storyline to get to the heavyweight championship. My job, whoever shows up, it's go out there and kill it for 20 minutes and have an incredible match. And I feel like I pulled that off. And so, yeah, there was a bit of an ego and a bit of a pride thing when it came to that championship, and having to let it go was a bit of a sting. And of course, I'm kind of watching everybody who holds it and thinking, you got some big shoes to fill there, brother. That being said, Davey Richards is he's probably my favorite wrestler. Like, I was always a huge fan of him, and now I've wrestled him twice. And both times I was just like, damn, like you're way better than I even thought, So for him to be holding it, it's if anyone's gonna have the honor, I'm glad it's him right now, and I'm sure he's gonna keep doing incredible things with it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So with the world title, you've held that for over a year now. And this actually gives you the second longest reign of all time. So I suppose the question is, are you looking to surpass Jacob Fatu's 819-day reign?
I guess that's what I have to do, right? It's crazy because you never know when the good times are going to last in wrestling, and you say things like holding a championship for a year. It sounds pretty crazy, but be the one to be in the position doesn't feel like my year's up or my time's up or the clock's ticking and it's time for someone else to have a turn. I feel like I'm hitting my stride, and I feel like I'm the best I've ever been, and I feel like I'm doing some of the best work, and I feel like I'm doing some of the best stuff for the company, and I feel like I've worked really hard to get into this role. And, you know, a lot of times you don't really realize all the things that this role entails. You know, it's more than just the wrestling. And I feel like that's a workload that I embrace cheerfully. And yeah, when you say, you know, Jacob was 819 days, it's like, well, guess what? You know, I'm coming up on, you know, 400 or whatever it is, and it feels like I've, you know, barely had it for, you know, a flash in the pan. So I feel like once I get to 800, it's going to be like, oh, no, I'm not ready to give this up. But then once I get to 1200, oh, no, I'm not ready to give this up. I feel like I'm going to be in a position where it's something like the national openweight title, where I'm forced to give it up for some reason.
Yeah, love it. Great answer. Obviously, you recently got to come across to kind of our neck of the woods over here in the UK for 1PW. So just wanted to get your thoughts on the UK and the UK wrestling fans.
Yeah, dude. So it was just so incredible. Like, you know, like I'm aware that I have a large footprint in wrestling now and a large audience. And but I never lose touch of the times that nobody knew who I was, you know, and to be across the, you know, the world in a different country for the first time, and the amount of people that walk up to my merch table already wearing one of my t-shirts, you know, and asking for an autograph and paying whatever $40 to do a meet and greet with me. It's like, man, it's just it's super humbling to see that. And the fans were super high energy. They were super wild. I had a blast over there. The only nitpick is that I spent probably 30 hours traveling back and forth, and I think I was in England for about 30 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of travel.
Yeah.
Obviously, Carl's mentioned you've wrestled in the UK. I believe you've wrestled in Japan and Mexico and well, many places over the world. So I suppose what I'd like to ask is, do you have a particular favorite place, and is there anywhere you haven't been that you'd like to go?
Oh, I don't know if I have a favorite. I think my favorite wrestling experience was Japan, just because it's like it's just such a high standard, and it was a heavy workload. You know, being on a tour bus and wrestling, you know, 5 nights a week, and it's just like you have to be in that warrior mindset, and it's just.
Yeah.
I enjoy being in that frame of mind for a period of time and just being like the grind, you know, it just really sharpens you up. Um, I recently was afforded the opportunity to wrestle in Australia with World Series Wrestling. That was truly incredible. Australia has always been one of my dream destinations. I feel like I have to go back because I didn't get to see any kangaroos. But yeah, man, there's still so much I want to do. Like I know WXW in Germany has some really incredible wrestling going on. You know, I even recently was contacted by a wrestling company in Italy. There's so many things at this point. Like it's just like I just want to go everywhere because there's something special about like not only stepping foot in a new company or a new state, but a whole new country, a whole new continent. And it's like, oh, if you don't know who I am, I'm gonna make you all realize right now. You know.
Yeah, love it. We've seen you mention it in an interview or two about obviously the kind of your upbringing and not necessarily having a ton of money, kind of growing up and things like that. You know, how does it feel? Obviously, talking about all the countries that you've traveled to and all these experiences you've got to have. Did you ever think there was a time that wouldn't be possible for you?
Yeah, it's I was like literally talking to someone the other day, my gym training partner, and I was like explaining to him kind of the different dichotomy between my girlfriend with her family and home life and mine, you know, and I was explaining like how we didn't have a lot of family traditions and stuff, and I was like, we didn't have like family vacation, like we never went anywhere ever, like so yeah, and that's not like an exaggeration, and so it's like to be able to go all these places and travel all these places and get to do all these things and meet all these people, it is really incredible. And that's, like I said, that's one of the things I try to never lose touch with, that I do get burnt out and I do get frustrated and I do get pissed off with, you know, travel delays and being stressed out and, you know, being stuck in airports and all that. But at the end of the day, it is a blessing. I'm very fortunate. And I always try to keep that in mind, even when I'm being a little pissy little little guy about everything.
So when it comes to MLW and wrestling in general, I suppose, is there anyone that you haven't faced yet, who you'd love to sort of, that's, I suppose, on your bucket list of opponents?
Oh man, let's think, man. So we have some guys coming up that are, really doing some big things. Alex Kane is making a lot of waves with MLW, but we just got some big debuts like Sam Adonis just debuted with MLW. Sam Adonis is really, really good, really incredible. I feel like he's the guy who sometimes gets overlooked by some people. I feel like he and I will have to cross paths eventually. Willie Mack now is doing some stuff with MLW. I've never wrestled Calvin Tankman in a singles match. That would be incredible. There's really a lot of guys, a lot of things that we haven't even touched yet that are still on the table. And a big one is that people ask me all the time is, well, when are you and Jacob Fatu gonna tear it up again? And we all know he's gunning for that championship. So I think there's still a lot of really good matches on the horizon, a lot of things for people to look forward to.
Awesome. Obviously, you reached number 24 this year in the PWI 500. So firstly, what were your thoughts on that ranking, and what are your goals for next year's?
It's one of those things, everybody has their own opinion about the PWI 500. Some people think it's really cool, really accurate. Some people think it's a whole bunch of garbage and people just pay to get their ranking or whatever. But at the end of the day, there are people who make those decisions, and to influence those people enough to think like, oh, that guy should be ranked this high. Obviously, it's reflective of the year I had in professional wrestling, holding one of the top companies' world championships for the entire calendar year, and not only that, but several indie companies as well. So I was like stunned, because it's one of those things. Obviously every year I've been jumping up, and I expected to continue to jump up, but again, like had you asked me a couple of years ago, I think up until 2018 or 19, I didn't even get on the list. So it is pretty incredible. And that being said, the only way is up from here. I ain't gonna do less this year than I did last year. I think when it comes to what time frame is counted, since then I've already debuted in Australia. I've already debuted in the UK, so I'm already charting new ground that I haven't charted last year, and we're just getting started. So I think to say I shouldn't be somewhere in the teens, I don't think that's unrealistic.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, huge news for MLW is that the events were going to be available on Pro Wrestling TV. So that's going to be worldwide for free. So for starters, I suppose this is sort of exciting news for MLW in terms of getting more eyeballs on the product, but also sort of exciting news for yourself as well. So how do you feel about this this sort of new venture and potentially sort of expanding the viewership, I suppose?
Yeah, I feel like it's a really great move. It's something that's really awesome. Obviously we're in a time where TV is great, but streaming is kind of the future. Like I can speaking for myself. Agree. I don't have TV service in my house. I have a couple different. I have Hulu and Amazon Prime and Netflix and all that. So for us to be on a streaming platform, I think that's a very brilliant move. But not only that, it's something that the service is going to be free. When you tell people, oh, we're on this or that, and it's like, oh, well, I don't want to pay for another thing. Then you don't have to. So it's easily accessible for everybody. They could be watching it on their smartphone or their iPad, or they could be streaming it to their TV. But it's I think it's going to be a great move. Obviously, having the show on YouTube for a long time was very accessible for a lot of people, but that has its downfalls with as far as like the advertisements and the monetization and all those things that you have to think of as a business. So I think this is a great move because not only is it equally accessible, if not more, it's not going to be something that you have to pay additional money to get. Everyone's going to be able to watch MLW on demand whenever they choose to.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we let you go, obviously we know you're a very busy man. We just got to ask, any more music coming from you anytime soon?
Oh man, I did my whole album. It was 100% done by myself. And the whole thing was like, I think a lot of people didn't realize, like, I don't think I'm a singer. I'm not delusional about that. I recorded an album. A lot of the reason was so that I could help myself find a band a lot more easily. So I find guys to say, "Hey, here's the music. Learn this, learn that." And we could all. And I thought that process was going to be extremely quick, extremely painless, extremely easy. Well, I recorded that album in like January or February, and here we are in November, and I still don't have a band. But that being said, I finally have found some guys and I've actually been linking up with and practicing with, and it's been going great. I'm about to hit the gym with the guy who's singing for the group, and then we're gonna have band practice today. So for the first time in almost a year, it's actually looking like it's going to pan out, and I might be able to play on a freaking stage again for the first time in over a decade.
Fingers crossed, man.
Awesome.
Fingers crossed.
So just one last thing before we let you go is if you could sort of just kindly let our audience know how they can keep up to date with your good self and with similarly with your music as well on sort of social media and the like.
Yes, sir. So I'm on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Alex Hammerstone. I'm on Facebook as Alexander Hammerstone. And then obviously please keep up with the Major League Wrestling social media as well. So they're going to be on Instagram and Twitter, but most importantly, they are on the Pro Wrestling TV app, and that is going to be my new home with MLW. So if you're saying, "Hey, I'm a fan of you, but I don't know where to watch your matches," now you know.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you so much. This has been awesome, and yeah, we genuinely appreciate it.
Of course, guys, man, I really had a pleasure. I hope we get to do this again. Maybe sometime when I have a little bit more time, we could flesh out a longer interview because you guys have been great.
Hell yeah. No, thank you very much, man.